Our last speaker of the night is Cary Sneider. Cary spoke with us in our first session, so I'm going to abbreviate a little bit of his background. He studied astrophysics at Harvard, and that's where he found his true calling in science education. He has taught middle school and high school science in Maine, California, Costa Rica, and Micronesia. He eventually settled at the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, focusing on teacher education. He's led many grants that help develop the next generation of science standards, and he is a recipient of multiple awards nationally. Let's please welcome Cary back to the stage.
Thank you. Well, I have the privilege of ending this amazing day, and I just have to say how humbling and astonishing these fabulous presentations were today. When we were working on the next generation science standards, we had no idea. Would it gain traction? Would it gain as much traction as prior sets of standards? And I'll tell you, we have been absolutely overwhelmed with the groundswell of interest and engagement. The connection with the Common Core mathematics and ELA standards, for example. It really has been amazing, and then to hear how many fabulous educators there are in this state overwhelms me. So I still have a presentation for you, one last presentation for the day, and it's about professional development, because 40 years plus, I've done many professional development programs, and in particular, lately I've been doing some about next generation science standards, of course. And these are there's much to present about it, for example, 3D learning. But these are three particular areas that I especially like to emphasize. One is that they're limited in scope. And this is something I think that's really important, because we went around, we had a number of rounds where science teachers commented on the various drafts. And we were told again and again, too much, too much. We can't do it all, and you want us to add engineering as well as science. There's a lot to do. If you really want students to be engaged in projects and do this over time, you can't do it you can't give us as many topics, as many core ideas as you have before, including all the core ideas in the framework. So the last stage of development we cut by a third. It was painful. It's like a pound of flesh that we had to remove. We all did the cutting, all of the areas. So there are just 13 core ideas taught over 13 years. We also have very clear statements about what it is that students should be able to do, the performance assessments. Tamara really made a good point about that earlier today, about how important it is to do performance assessments, because that's what we're expecting students to be able to do. Not just what they know, but what they can do with what they know. And then finally, connections both within and across grade levels. That means when you're a 5th grade teacher, it's really important to know, and you're teaching astronomy, it's important to know what students were supposed to learn the last time they took an astronomy unit, back in the 1st grade, and then how you need to prepare them for middle school. So keep these ideas in mind as I talk about 3 different audiences of teachers. And this has come, I'd say this lesson has really hit home in the last year, especially, as I've had a number of experiences. First, there are teachers with little experience teaching science. And that means teachers who are brand new to the field, but also those who've been teaching even for a year or 2 years. So they're still settling in and understanding what it's all about. Secondly is veteran science teachers. Teachers who've been teaching anywhere from 3 to 20 to even 30 years. They have different needs. And then the third group is scientists and engineers who are retiring from their fields or deciding to really shift mid-career and become teachers. They all have very different needs. So those who have little experience in teaching science, I think the most important thing is mentors. We have heard the term today many, many times about the importance of mentors. I was very fortunate to have mentors. when I was starting to teach. And, or I wouldn't be here today. So mentors are important, induction programs, school-based, teacher coaches are really important. We heard about that also, and the importance of teacher coaches. Someone who will be there in the classroom with you, giving you suggestions and ideas and coaching. So these are all really important experiences. Without them and without the support from the administrator, it's very, very hard to do this job. So we're talking about people who have spent years in college, a lot of money to get their degree, and then why would they want to leave the profession without these capabilities? So quick experience, quick story. I was doing a number of videos, and I was expected to produce 20 short videos on entirely different topics in science education and integrate the 3D dimensions in 5 days. And luckily, the makeup person, this woman who had to make sure that my bright, shiny head wouldn't blind the camera, was very helpful. And so we would brainstorm together, and she would run out to the hardware store, or we'd come up with a new idea, because, you know, you can't just have a talking head in science. You really has to be interested. There has to be some phenomena and some ideas about what to do with that. Turns out she had been a 5th grade teacher. Now, why would such a talented 5th grade teacher decide that she wanted to be a makeup artist? No aspersions to makeup artists, of course, but, you know, from my point of view, this is a really exciting field, teaching. And she said she taught for 5 years, and in that 5 years, she had no support from her principal, no support from her other teachers in her school, and all the materials she had to buy out of her own pocket. No wonder she decided to leave the field. So this is very, very important. That support is really incredibly important. The literature shows that it's also important to have support from parents in the community and from the students, too. So there's we probably all heard the data that after 5 years, 50% of the teachers leave the profession. Not entirely true. There have been new studies showing it's not quite that bad. One study showed after 5 years, only 17% have left the field. Still a little high in my view. But according to science and engineering indicators from NSF, there's a higher rate of people leaving the field in the areas of science and mathematics. 25% after 3 years leave the field. This is terrible. We have to do something about it. So it's especially important to have ideas to work with teachers and helping them connect to other parts of the curriculum, especially elementary teachers. Because here's an opportunity to have a twofer, teach science and literature at the same time, or science and mathematics. We heard about that today also. Wonderful ideas for doing that. And most important, of course, is engaging curricula focused on the appropriate grade level. And now there is more and more curricula being produced. So we can't expect teachers to invent it all. And we need to help teachers find that curriculum. Now, veteran science teachers, I'm going to tell a story of 2 school districts. One is a small district close to me, where I've had a chance to work with the teachers and middle school teachers over a couple of years. And as soon as Oregon adopted the NGSS, this district decided within 2 years our teachers are all going to be teaching according to the NGSS. The person on the left is the superintendent, and he and his assistant superintendents really supported this idea. And the fellow on the right is a principal. He was at every session. Not always do you get principals attend teacher workshops all day long. Other principals came in as well. There were three middle schools, and there are about 20 teachers involved in this process. So number one, they had a reason to change because their administrators were requiring it. Secondly, a vision of learning progressions. Now, you've seen charts like this. What's important is that the teachers came up with this chart. So this is the middle school level, And Oregon decided to use the same approach that California, taking what students should be learning grade by grade in grades 6, 7, and 8. But this group of teachers said, well, let's examine that a little more carefully. And they juggled some things around so it would make more sense for them. Again, that's a really important thing. That's just the first step, deciding what units to teach when. The big question is, how do you teach those units? Because this is 2013. Standards have just been released. Next Generation Science Standards has just been released. Any curriculum that says we're aligned is crazy. I mean, it just can't be done. So how do we do this? And so my proposal to the group was, okay, if you are most comfortable teaching weather, then your job is to develop the 6th grade unit by sharing everything that you've learned. So we had a small team for the 6th grade developing the units for weather, a different team developing the 8th grade unit for evolution. And so people brought to it what their expertise was. Seemed to make sense to me. But we had some teachers who said, you know, we have this 1 week of paid professional development time in the summer to work together. I should be working on preparing my classes for my students. I'm going to teach 8th grade. Why should I spend all my time helping with the 6th grade? You know? So I could understand that point of view. And so we had quite a bit of pushback. And then one teacher stood up and said, look, let's think of this as a barn raising. Let's all help the teachers who have to teach this material this year, who have never taught it before. Hey, we've got experience. Let's help them out. And then next year, they will help us out to prepare the new classes that we need to teach. And it carried the day. And we really had teachers really involved. And as you can see over here, these teachers really became leaders in their district. And because they had so much to share. It was marvelous because they were really experts at what they had. And also there was a mixture of new teachers and experienced teachers. And that mixture is exactly what you want, especially in a creative situation like this. So that collegiality, which again is very important to support the new teachers, continued throughout the year. And we had teachers talking with teachers in the other middle schools in their community that had never talked before. So it really, really was very, very effective for this particular district. Before we go on to the last group, I want to mention one other situation. This is a much larger district in California, and they called me down to facilitate something very similar. And this district had about a dozen middle schools and 100 middle school teachers. And we got together with the first group of about 30. And I thought, well, let's take the experience from Oregon and just bring it to California and do things in a similar way. We got started and it was going very well. And then a couple of teachers pulled me aside at lunchtime, and they were in tears. They were 20-year veterans, and they had developed incredible programs in their school. I mean, they had a saltwater aquarium. They had done such hard work developing good curriculum materials. They knew their subjects so well. They had fine-tuned it over the years. They had support from their principal, from the parents. The kids couldn't wait to take their class. And they said, you want me to give this up and teach weather? I understood. I mean, I could really understand where they were coming from. So, first thing to do, and my wife taught me this, first thing you need to do is listen. People need to be heard. That's number one. I try to fix things, well, you could do it this way, you could do that. It doesn't work. People need to be heard. And so that first day, I really had to understand what the problem was, what they had accomplished, why it was really important. On the second day, I think I was able to help persuade them that this school had this amazing program. But there's another school not far away, and another and another and another in this district that didn't have this experience. They didn't have the teachers who had this capability for their students. They really needed to start shifting and becoming leaders in their district. It took a while, but by the end of that week, they really were leaders, and they were helping out. Now, I don't go down there all the time. I spent that week and probably will be coming back once or twice. But their next job was to present it to the other 90 teachers in the district. And they were the leaders. So it really is a shift. We saw, again, some wonderful ideas and images about change and how important change is, and how important change is to keep us alive and moving. So that's what I think the answer is for veteran science teachers. They really need to be leaders and step up and help others. And then the last group that again has special needs are the scientists and engineers. And they're all different. Keep in mind, everyone is different. I've been working with an engineer who's been had leadership roles in the corporate world for many years, who takes to science education amazingly well. One of the best curriculum developers I've ever worked with, who is out there with the kids all the time and talking to them and listening, and not only caring about are they understanding the ideas, but what do they care about, what do they want, what do they need, what makes them excited about coming to school. But many of them aren't quite ready. And I've actually seen some scientists and engineers stand up and use their 25 or 100 slides with the same presentation that they give their colleagues. So it really requires, they need experience in the classroom. They need tested curriculum materials that work for the kids that they need to be teaching. And they need appreciation of the learning process. They understand their subject well. They've got lots of experience. But these are their needs. Now, I'm going to tell you one story to end the day with. And it's a story about a chemist who decided he had just retired from his job, and he's going to become a teacher. He's going to teach high school. I was at the time teaching with a colleague, a group of elementary teachers. And we were teaching about the next generation science standards, and he wanted to get a sense of, well, what is it that elementary teachers are doing? So he joined the group, and I was a little bit worried because, again, you have someone who really has a lot of subject matter, and other people in that group who weren't even comfortable teaching science at all. So things went well the first couple of days because he really pitched in and did all the activities. He didn't think they were silly. He got very much involved. He was helping him collect data. He was just one of the people who were doing the workshop. And then I came in the third morning, and one of the teachers came over and talked to the two of us who were facilitating that session. And they said, you know, Cary, we have a problem because the chemist here said, well, I kind of understand why education has a problem because a lot of the teachers earlier on don't really know the science. How are they supposed to teach it? And I thought, oh no, this is what I feared. So my colleague and I got together, and she had encountered this issue before. So we did not hit it head on. We didn't go over and speak to this person and say, please don't say this. What we did is we addressed the whole group. And we said, now, I want you guys to keep in mind that with the next generation science standards, students don't learn the same thing they don't study the same topic every year. There's 3 or 4 years between the times that they have a unit on the same topic. Keep in mind that kids forget things. Even if a teacher did a fabulous job teaching it, all the kids got 100 on all their assessments, they're going to forget. Why do you think researchers do delayed post-tests? They want to find out how much the kids have forgotten over a certain period of time. You do delayed post-tests over 2 weeks or a month or 6 months. How many people do delayed post-tests over 3 or 4 years? Right? So keep in mind that when you teach a new subject, look at what the kids were supposed to have learned last time they studied that subject. And your job is to find out how well they understand that. how well they understand those practices and those core ideas. And your job is to teach them that before you teach the new stuff. Makes perfect sense. And see, people seem to be nodding, and they got it. And then I added, the other thing you need to do is not blame the other teachers. Don't play the blame game. If the kids don't get it, it's your job to teach it, not to blame others for not teaching it. So we ended the workshop with what I'm about to show you. It's a little poem. It's anonymous. We don't know who actually came up with the poem. And we're going to end today's program with this, with these thoughts. Don't give in to the blame game. The college professor said, such rawness in a student is a shame. Lack of preparation in the high school is to blame. Said the high school science teacher, good heavens, the boy's a fool. The fault, of course, is with the grammar school. The grammar school teacher said, from such stupidity may I be spared. They sent him up to me so unprepared. The primary teacher huffed, kindergarten blockheads all, they call that preparation? Why, that's worse than none at all. The kindergarten teacher said, such a lack of training never did I see. What kind of woman must that mother be? The mother said, poor helpless child, he's not to blame. His father's people were all the same. Wait for it. Said the father at the end of the line, I doubt if the rascal's even mine. Thank you very much.